So today I will have the pleasure to host 8 brilliant global artists who have mastered their art in various disciplines. You will see that their art doesn't only look and sound beautiful, because we are having poets today as well. They are also using their art as a force for good. And over the next couple of hours, they will share with us how, through vivid and mesmerizing examples of their art projects. Also, please note that we will both open and close this event with a different poem. So stay until the end, because the closing poem is absolutely ace, and it is a new exclusive one written just for us today. So while everybody is joining the webinar, I'd like to emphasize that this art event is part of the Arts for the Future Festival, created by Emmy-winning filmmaker Lisa Russell, who has worked in the UN space for over 20 years. The festival is a global artist-led event that aims to re-envision the role of the arts and culture, amplifying the voices of artists and cultural workers in global discussions, recognizing the power of the arts to drive sustainable development. The festival is taking place between the 13th and 29th of September globally and in New York City around the United Nations Summit of the Future, which started yesterday, the UN General Assembly taking place this month, and NYC Climate Week, which will span the whole of next week. It includes a variety of events such as global artist talks, film screenings, music and poetry performances, exhibitions, and creative workshops. So go and check the festival agenda on Fest app. You will find all the events there. Lisa Russell couldn't be with us today, as she's speaking today at the United Nations Action Days as part of the Summit of the Future. She's actually on in less than half an hour, but she will watch the recording of this event. And I wanted to share with you a quote that is a favorite of hers about the role of the artist, as it is today's theme. So it is by Toni Cade Bambara, and it says, "The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible." So I had the pleasure to interview Lisa on the Shades of Life podcast recently, and here is an extract that explains further her love for this quote.
So I use this quote all the time because it's perfect, but it's by Toni Cade Bambara, who says the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. And when I use the word revolution in the UN space, they're like, oh, you're going to overthrow governments. No. All right. No. Revolution can also mean changing the system, right? So sometimes I'll say the role of the artist is to create it. The role of the artist is to make the climate revolution irresistible, or the role of the artist is to make the gender equality revolution irresistible. Like there's so much that society has to fight against.
Yes, there is so much that society needs to fight against, from climate change to injustice, and our artists today will shine a light on some of these issues, from mental health to fast fashion or biodiversity loss. But importantly, they will show us how the arts can have this unique capacity to humanize complex issues, turn pain into new narratives, and provoke the kind of emotional and intellectual engagement that can lead to real change. So here are our 8 artists joining us today as headline speakers. Various forms of art will be represented, from poetry to AI art or illustration and painting. And you can see on this map that we are having a true multicultural representation, as our artists are joining from all over the world today. And we will start this event with an artist from Nigeria. Ov Onyeka, also known as Brainbox, is a development creative with extensive experience in poetry, photography, film, and other art forms. His work spans both local and international arenas, and he is also an educator with a passion for mentoring young people. An author of 2 lyrical collections, Valentine has produced impactful poetry videos for organizations such as UNHCR, Amnesty International, and Witnessed. He also conducted postgraduate research on social justice and advocacy. So I'm going to invite him to join us. Go. Hi, Ov. How are you?
I'm fine, Ingrid. Thanks for having me here.
I think you are full screen now. Perfect. So, Ov, you are actually opening this event, with a poem, The Humanitarian Commentary. Do you want to tell us a few words about it? What is it about?
Yeah, so thank you so much for that question. So the humanitarian commentary is actually a body of work that talks about the human condition, the human race in general, with regards to the fact that everyone is a potential refugee. All it takes is just for one injustice to happen, and then it sparks maybe a series of unjust events that could make people become refugees. So one of the hardest place to be is being a refugee, in the sense that when someone becomes a refugee, or when a series of unfortunate events happens, then it leads to the person beginning to have identity crisis, as in when somebody lost their home, lost their livelihood, so it becomes a big problem. And when somebody doesn't have a roof over their head, then it means that they can't function. It means that they can't dream, they can't have careers and all that. But once that is in place, once you know that this is where you're settled in, and then you are not under any form of attacks and all that, then whether as a refugee or as just someone who is yet to experience such horrific events, I think that way it's just very important for me to have said, okay, what is the humanitarian commentary? I believe it starts with the human condition. A very positive human condition would lead to a very positive life, a positive experience at life, if you permit me to say that. So just a body of work of my 5 years collaboration with the UNHCR. I did a couple of collaborations with them, writing poems on World Refugee Day. So I put them together to form the humanitarian commentary. So one of the pieces from that body of work is what I hope to present today. Thank you.
Perfect. So stay here. You're going to keep the floor. I'm going to mute myself, and please, we will listen to your poem now.
I'm going to play a little background music just to get into the mood. The universe bears a burden of fairness in human narratives, a burden in the fickleness of our realities, from the mimics of paradise in one chapter to the dark edges of a breaking news headline we couldn't care less about. The universe bears that burden for border communities, for border countries to accommodate large influxes, for daring boats that sail the creek waters with backpacks of memories across continents, for cargo planes crammed with truncated plans and botched dreams, yet boarded with tickets of hope. The universe and its burden for diplomatic debates, for negotiations of welfare, as people get caught behind the disastrous lines of injustices, or at certain times between the fangs of a natural tragedy. These numbers growing in millions, are becoming a nation size, I fear an entire country may have been displaced ahead of finding the passage to nirvana. Have you seen the recent scenes in Turkey, where rescuers frantically beamed their torchlights under the rubble in search of precious gaps of oxygen, where once bustling streets have been left empty by tremors, just as families no longer have a place to even pray for their next meal? A similar wave of quakes touched Syria too, amid a lingering uncertainty of gunfire and the chaotic reign of instability in its political history, adding another layer of tragedy to the plight of the fleeing vulnerable. See, the culprits in a humanitarian crisis bear a dispiriting legacy that is not without the Ukrainian story that limps through an avoidable war, nor the stereotypical emergencies in Afghanistan. It is not without the Sudanese burden of separation, the persistent misfortunes of Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, the poetic tears from way back Somalia, the fading perception of Eritrea's beauty, and the faces of children who were born stateless around the mystery of identification and belongingness in the twin countries of the Caribbean island, Hispaniola. The refugees' legacy is further down in the abyss of hopelessness for many nations. If only we could mention Nigeria's prime struggles with over a decade-long insurgency, banditry, and the existential threats of marginalization. It is the latent exodus along the Cameroonian border and the enormous symbol of injustice across the world, a burden of global concern deserving of attention, compassion, and sustainable solutions. The universe bears a burden to shine a light on this legacy that ironically represents the strength, resilience, and the courage of refugees to rebuild, to reintegrate, to start over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valentine. That's a really powerful poem. And we will have an article on Scarlet Red Mag with a feature on each of the artists that you are having today. So we can refer to your poem again, but really love the focus on the refugee crisis and the theme of compassion, empathy, and hope that you have explored with it. So last question for you. How do you see the role of the artist in driving change for people and planet?
Well, I just have one thing to say with regards to this. I always believe that if you can imagine words in your head, I mean words in the way they are composed or in the way that they come to you through inspiration. If you can imagine it and put it on paper, what is stopping you from creating the world we want? So for me, the role of the artist is to create. I mean, it's about building that consciousness, conscientizing society. Some of us, we grew up listening to some kind of songs that kind of influence our lifestyle. It's that deep that art can influence lifestyle. The kind of music, I used to say this some time ago that it's not like I'm holier than thou, but if I can entertain in a positive way, in a way that could bring about change, then maybe the world may find some balance. So I believe that everything in life can be represented through art. I mean, in this case, every form of injustice that exists out there can be represented through art, just like the previous speaker. There was a lot of thematic elements that one could glean from, her pieces. So I believe that creating that and people seeing that, become conscious of that if it's a problem, and then ultimately it opens up a debate channel for people to be able to talk about things. I mean, art enables people to talk about things. And once people can talk about things and engage in a way that is more meaningful, I believe that with critical thinking and all that, it's going to spark, just like Tupac said, that he's going to create the art that is going to spark the minds that will create the ideas that, kind of change the world. So I just believe art as a role for me is just to keep creating And I believe that creating is going to also usher in a new and a better world. So artists for the future. And just finally to say, today's art is tomorrow's refuge. So thank you.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. And happy birthday, I think, because it's coming soon as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for joining today, Valentine. So the next artist to join us is Tanja Schalling from Austria, even if she's joining us from New York City today, where she's shooting a campaign from breast cancer awareness. Tanja is an artist, photographer, and author. Her artistic journey began with a love for writing and evolved into a diverse practice encompassing painting, photography, and poetry. Her use of AI to bring her visions to life showcases her innovative approach to art, addressing profound existential questions and evoking strong emotional responses. The spiritual and philosophical depth of her creations have garnered her a significant following on Instagram, and I encourage you to check it out. So let's welcome Tanja.
Hello.
Hi, Tanja. Technical issues are always a thing when you do webinars.
Yeah, I guess.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm a little bit jet lagged, but
You arrive,
I'm
okay,
good.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tanja, we are going to share 5 of your beautiful video reels blending AI, photography, and poetry. We will play them one by one, and after each one, please can you give us some background about the video and the story you wanted to tell through them? So let's start with the first one.
Once there were people in this world, not only flowers and trees, but they have decided to all get divided and kill all the birds and the bees. They killed the love for one another. They killed their neighbors, their sisters and brothers, until the last of them was gone. Until the last of them was gone.
So that's a beautiful video with Morvoir as a theme. Do you want to say a few words about it?
Yes, I can say a few words about it. Sometimes the situation the world is in is really affecting me. It feels like you're helpless as an individual to do anything about the cruelty people act out against each other. And I love to speak in metaphors or to put myself in the situation of others. And then I kind of went to the place where we did the worst to each other and we kind of extincted ourselves, and all that is going to be left from us is like an old story trees will tell each other about this race that was on the planet, who are called people. So, and I think it's quite strong because it puts the listener in the perspective of, it zooms out of the whole situation and shows the result which we're heading to. So yeah, that was kind of the message behind that, but I think it's quite clear. Don't know.
Yeah, and it's not a topic easy to approach, and you do it with a lot of poetry as well, which is very unusual.
The only place where past can be is in your realm of memory. And all the future that you'll find is not yet here, but in your mind. So there is just that tiny space between what was and not yet is. A single truth there is to know, the very moment before you go.
So another one of your short video reels using AI art. So can you tell us a few words about that one too?
Yeah, there was this moment where I had this concept in head that the only place where past can be is in your realm of memory. Means we all know the concept of that there is only this one eternal now. So I try to translate the concept of time, which our brain needs to function, to live live in a place where there is past, present, and future, but then bring in the concept of timelessness, where there's only the present moment. So I try to apply this logic that if there is no past and there is no future, there is actually just one moment that you truly exist, and that's the moment you exist before not existing anymore, which would be the moment you die. So I try to bring in the concept that all the energy you collect, like the energy you become, like the frequency you're in, collecting throughout your lifespan in a linear time period, just commules down to this last moment where because energy can't die. So the moment you go is the moment you release all of that collective energy that you collected through your lifespan. That's the rest, like that's the thing you are in the end. And this is what you're going to release into the universe, into heavens, or whatever you want to call it. So that was the background of this poem.
That's beautiful. You remind me The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle.
It's my favorite book.
Okay, so let's move to the third video. Again, another short reel, and then we'll talk about it after.
1,000 sunsets I have seen in 1,000 places that I've been. 100 lives that I have lived. Each came with lessons I've received. 12 souls that I'm greeting every time that we are meeting. But all the times I'm passing through, there is a one and only you.
Another really beautiful one. So what is the spirit of this one?
Oh, I was in love.
All right.
No, but the story behind that is that throughout your lifespan, for me at least, it feels like some people you meet do feel so familiar, as if you were like a group of actors that is playing different plays over and over every time, and you take on different roles, and those people feel so familiar to you, like the energy or the connection or whatever, and just the memory is missing out. Like, where do I know you from? We've done this before, we've played this before. And I think that's also, if you bring it down to the concept of just of everything just being energy, and this world just being like a projection, a 3D projection of whatever is going on in like much higher dimensions or realities, or different dimensions and realities. Or the concept that I prefer the most is that there is no past lives or future lives or present lives, but there is everything happening all at once, parallel, playing out in different orchestrated symphonies, expressing itself in different realities. So when you meet people or that feel like we know each other, it's almost like you're just wearing different masks and bodies, but playing different roles. Maybe one time I'm a doctor, you're a patient. Maybe one time I'm a mother, you're a child. It feels so familiar very often. So this is, and then there's those people that you meet that teach you the biggest lessons on your path. And there's a couple of those for each one of us, I think, that we meet throughout our lives.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, that was what this poem was about.
Yeah, and you certainly have a very unique way to bring these topics to life. So the next video we are playing has played a big role for you in your career as an artist, as it went viral, and your career were, whoops!
Yeah.
It totally exploded. So let's play it, and then perhaps I'll bring you full screen for this one for you to explain a bit more about it. So let's bring you full screen a little. Tell us about this one.
Well, so I love the story of this one because it's not spoken word poetry, it's visual poetry. So the background behind that was that I felt like really unseen, worthless, and exchangeable. That's also interchangeable is the name of the piece, because it shows like how you can interchange people and just replace them with somebody else. Like I told you in our interview, it looks like it's the same woman in the reel, but it's actually, I think, 20 different women who are like covered with paint strokes, which represents that you always project your own picture, your own canvas onto other people, what you want to see in them, while they have the choice if they see themselves through your vision or if they have their own. But they're blindfolded by other people's perception of them. And the pink paint stroke for me represents, because in this picture she can kind of like barely see through, she can see the colors, but then the circle, it's the video is a perfect loop. So she can almost see through and then goes back into projection again, and so on and on. And I think what made this particular video go viral was because it left so much space for personal interpretation of each and every viewer. Like overnight, when it exploded on Instagram, I got thousands of messages, I told you, of people who could see their own life story or their own situation there are in the moment in this particular piece. And it really touched my heart, the stories that people told me about themselves and what they felt when they saw this. I didn't expect that at all, because back then I had like a small account where I just, played around and posted whatever artistic expression came to my head, if it was painting or pottery or whatever. And then I started to play around with AI, and I had this piece in my head and I produced it with AI. And I put it out there like everything else. And from one second to the other, like my account and everything else I was doing on there obviously was very exposed. And I got enormous feedback, not only on this piece, but also on everything else I posted there before and everything after that. So I can just encourage people to just do and to just create. And you never know what part of you will resonate, like what part of your art will actually finally resonate with like a lot of people and will give you the exposure you need for like all of your other work too. So yeah that was, and this piece also has been used for am I still?
You're still.
Yeah. And this piece also has been used a lot by different human rights and female rights organizations. I think the reason is clear, because you can project every situation that is unrightful on this world for it. So I'm very proud of that. I got really a lot of requests from NGOs and stuff to use that piece for their own message. Yeah, so...
which is great, and that shows that when art resonates with people, where it can lead you. You're a living example of that. So let's share the last video of yours. Actually, there are two more, sorry.
What if our souls wouldn't wear bodies? What would the beauty standards be? What would you try to cover with makeup? What would you be scared for others to see?
I really love this one because we live in such a visual world where everybody judges themselves and others on appearance. I really love this one. So a few words about it, Tanja, if you can.
Yes, so I wrote it when I had this moment where I was like, I'm living, as many artists, I'm living kind of like in my little fantasy world. And I love like my imaginary place that I go in. And so I was there. I wonder if we couldn't hide behind things, you know, if we couldn't hide behind charisma, behind beauty, behind money and fame and all the things that you create here, if we would actually see the flaws and the beauties in other people's souls. And then I kind of made this funny thought experiment. What would souls do to hide their parts that they don't want other people to be seen? You know, if we wouldn't have this costume we're wearing, we couldn't hide from each other. And then I was like, this is a beautiful concept, because then everybody could see that nobody else is perfect either. Everybody has their lights and their shadows. Everybody has their insecurities and the stuff they're proud of. And it would be normal to see how other souls feel and experience. And I think that actually this is kind of an anti-war and a humanitarian piece as well. Because if we could see each other and understand each other better, if we couldn't hide from each other, then you would see that the other person isn't stronger or more aggressive, or even where it's coming from, or you could see their pains and their worries, and you could see everything about somebody in like a beautiful, complete piece, and you would see they're not different than you. They're just the same. And we wouldn't have those things we could hide behind. It would be a beautiful place, actually, I think. Complete different mindset towards each other.
Yeah, it really goes back to what's your essence behind the vessel we are in, really. Yeah, that's really beautiful, Tanja. So let's play your last video this time. I like the last video because I think it also reflects the message of all the artists today. So let's play it.
Do you trust in what you see? What is your reality? Some see things black, some see them white, some see the dark where there is light. Perception is the key that sets the bar. You can't see the world as it is. You can only see it as you are.
Really nice message again.
Thank you.
So let me bring you back, because I'm conscious of time as well. And let me ask you a last question, which is the theme today. And I will ask the same question to all the artists as well. How do you see the role of the artist in driving change for people and planets? So I think you focus more on the people element of it. Can you tell us?
Well, I think art is one of the few ways where you can break free from predeterminations and premises. Art is nothing that accepts rules from anywhere. So the only way to walk new pathways and to break free from, like I said, predeterminations is art. Artists are, I think, this group of people who walk the new pathways and give other people the bravery to also change their way of thinking. It also shows, even like if it's in words or if it's in pictures or in any other way, it opens perspectives that maybe somebody hasn't thought before without seeing that piece. And so I think it's a very, very important thing to just keep creating, to not limit yourself to the predeterminations, what art actually is. I always love this. It's kind of like the irony of it, that people will try to tell you what is art and what is not, because art is the only thing that doesn't accept definition. And so I want to encourage people to just do whatever they feel like expressing. You never know if you have your group of people that feel exactly the way you do, and they feel encouraged to spread, like kind of in like the Ponzi scheme where like you start a spark. It can be as small as, I don't know, an Instagram reel, and you inspire people to go their own way and do their own thing. So you kind of like indicate like a little virus, and that can go really big. So just do your thing. Don't worry about if somebody thinks it's weird or it's not good or whatever. Just do it. You never know where it goes.
Great message, Tanja. Thank you so much for joining us today and for all your very inspiring insights. I wish you a very good time while you are in New York. And I'm sure we will connect after. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. So our next and third artist is Sheila Darcey, who is based in LA, California. Sheila is a visionary artist and the founder of Sketch Poetic, a creative expression practice that empowers individuals to express, reflect, and heal. Standing at the intersection between art, technology, and wellness, Sheila is a pioneer dedicated to promoting art and healing. So let's welcome Sheila. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. What a curation. I love that I'm following these two artists. They laid the groundwork for what I do.
Yeah, we have wonderful artists today. So Sheila, we are going to start with you by sharing a video showing you working on an illustration with accompanying words. And then afterward, we will share 3 different artworks you have created, and you will share background about each one. So let's start with the video so that people can see you in action. I can't get enough of that.
I started sketching with the outline of my hand over 4 years ago. Initially, it was a playful container to express how I feel. It has since evolved and now serves as a creative way to connect and support others in their healing journey. In Chinese medicine, there are said to be 12 major meridians in our hands. Meridians are a circulating system that allows the flow of vital energy called qi. This system incorporates the yin and yang duality. The yin energy radiates out, while the yang energy returns to the core. Being conscious of what is hidden is part of my healing. I engage all parts of my being, including my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self. At first, I didn't understand the power of this part of my gift, but the more I claim it, the deeper, more profound the connections have been. I don't often speak to the visionary, mystical, or psychic nature of my work. However, as an artist and advocate for arts and healing, it is important to share this part of myself with the world. My art heals, not only in the process of the marks being made, it holds energy that can transform or transmute the energy of those who see it. Take a moment to stare at the sketch, allow yourself to feel what it evokes, and let the energy of it move through you.
Beautiful. So that leads us also beautifully to the first kind of couple of artworks around the same thing, the hand, as we've seen on your video. So I'll let you speak about it. What's the background about this artwork? It's called Coffee and Ink.
Yeah, that's the method. But first of all, like I said, I'm so glad I followed Tanja and Ov because they laid the foundation of what my art's really about. My journey to the visionary artistry that I do started with my mental health journey. And it didn't always look like this. It was really about me addressing my mental health. So I was sketching every day since April 19th, 2017. And what ended up happening, and we've talked about consciousness in the last 2 conversations, but my definition of healing is really bringing the unconscious, subconscious to the conscious field. And in the process of expressing my emotions and really dealing with my mental health, the more I did it, the more tapped in I got. And interestingly, I call it my healing and spiritual path. So I feel very divinely guided in the way my artistry is evolving, the way I'm showing up in the world, is I'm moving very much from an ecosystem to an ecosystem, which is why I feel so honored to be part of this conversation. Because the more I walk this path of healing and transformation, the more I get out of my own way. I really am just a vessel and an instrument for spirit, for God, for whatever nature wants to speak through me, because it needs to be heard. I don't need to say anything that nature doesn't want to speak out loud. And so I just feel like I'm the vessel. So what you're seeing in my work is the true essence of flow and true essence of source flowing through me. And in order for me to have done that, I needed to do a lot of healing work, right? I needed to address my mental health, my emotional health, my physical health. So I'm doing a lot of somatic work, a lot of releasing of energy in my body. And in the process of that, I've really become a conduit for spirit to come through in my work. So if you see in the images that you're looking at, these are 2 hand sketches that I did for 2 individuals where I engaged them with coffee, and I had them do the coffee stains. So one of the things that we forget when we're doing the work of what I call artivism or artistry and activism is that sometimes we forget about the playfulness and the fun factor of what we do. Like it can feel very heavy and very, very serious. And the reality is art can be so playful and it can be so imaginative that it really balances the heaviness of the topics that we're talking about. We're talking about war and destruction and global climate crisis and humanitarian and refugees. Like, just if you're dabbling in these conversations, your body can feel very heavy. And so art matters because it allows us to express all of that back out so that we don't hold it, so we have the capacity to be in this movement and to help others and to help others see the path forward to help the world as it stands today. So that's why I'm so passionate about arts and healing, because art is a tool for healing. And I wish I had heard that when I was 15, when I abandoned my art.
Beautiful, yes. And I love, I love the simplicity and the playfulness of using something as simple as coffee to create art. I just love it. And obviously the hand as a symbol is very powerful. So let's have a look at your second artwork, She Speaks. So what about this one? Do you have it in the background? It's the same, right?
I do. And I'll tell you why I have it in the background. I'm in quite a few Zooms and quite a few online conversations. And this is one of the answers to your question that you're going to ask me at the end, but I'm going to seed it now, is whenever people view art, there's an invitation to look inward, always. And oftentimes I'm in these Zooms and we're staring at each other, but we're not really looking at each other. We're not really connecting. And every time, and I could be talking about, I could be in a consulting conversation. I could be in a project management conversation, getting to-do lists done. But because this sits behind me, it speaks, hence the title, She Speaks. But this one in particular was very much a embodied piece. And I say embodied because the essence of it was I embodied Mother Earth, Gaia. And I asked her, please help me understand, what is it you feel every day? And it surprised me what I heard and what came through me. And I feel like it's an important part of this conversation, is while there is a lot of reasons to be sad, to be grieving, to feel despair about her as she stands and what she is facing today, she said to me in these words, what's with all the sadness? I am the art. I am the artist. I am the masterpiece. And what she is saying to us is, if we could just look around us, and Charlotte's going to be talking about it with water, and Charlotte and I met through Sketch Poetics. So she's one of your.
I realized this. I didn't know.
I want to say shout out to Charlotte. But, she has always known this, and I've always known it, but I'm becoming more vocal about it, which is, she's saying, look outside of us, and even in the destruction, even in my decay, even in my rotting, even in my exhaustion and depletion and the raping of my resources, there is beauty in all of it, because we as humans are reflecting the very same thing. We are nature, we're all connected. And I think that's, to me, the role of the artist is really to reflect not only the culture and the times, but to reflect that we are truly connected in every sense of, and energy. And Tanja was talking about energy. That is the language in which I speak. Energy cannot be destroyed, nor it could be made. It's always moving. And so this piece that you're looking at, it speaks for itself, right? You can see the movement, you can see the dimension, you can see the depth. And more importantly, what meaning you meaning you make from it and what you feel from it is for you and only you. and how it evokes you and how it catalyzes you to action is my role. If there's one thing I can do is to catalyze others to look inward and to find their own creative expression, whether it's spoken word, whether it's music, whether it's singing. My purpose of arts and healing has the S on it for a reason. The arts is expansive. It's not just visual. It's, it's every sense you can think about. But I think what we forget is it's an embodied experience. Our breath, every cell of our body, every ounce of our spirit pours into our art. Therefore, it is received in that way if we're intentional about how we do it and what we're putting out there in the world.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, when looking at this piece, it really looks like an invitation to look into it. And I'm sure as many people look into it, as many interpretations, isn't it?
Yeah, there's one feeling I did want to share, because there's a lot of feminine energy pouring out right now in the world. Some people call it divine feminine, but I want to be clear when I say feminine energy. Men and whatever gender identity you have, we all have masculine and feminine within us. And what this piece is really evoking is that feminine energy of the creation, and we are both the creator, and we are also both being held by the creator. If we can really understand that power of that duality of being both the creator and being held by the creator, and knowing that we're always in that relationship, that the relational, it's just powerful. And it really does bring you to your knees in the awe of that, like just that power. And so that's what this piece really evokes for me.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Sheila. So let's have a look at the last one. Very colorful.
Listen, I don't usually do color because I have a very beautiful relationship with black and white because of the metaphor it stands for. A lot of my mental health journey, and certainly the work I do with mental health advocacy, is that it's very uncomfortable to see the black and whites of our lives. We do very well in the gray areas, because what it does is it protects us from really going deep into either side. And when I say black and white, I also mean the metaphor of darkness and light. And for my entire life, I played really well in the light. I was very good at projecting that light side of myself, but there was always these shadowed parts of myself. And I think a lot of people avoid their mental health journey because they're afraid of what those shadows are going to reveal. They're afraid that there's a Pandora's box, and if I see it, it'll be chaotic and out of control, but that I don't want to see what I don't want to see. And what I have found, and this is the reason I think color has come back into my fold, is I needed to be in the black and white because I needed to make peace with the shadowed parts of myself that will always exist. I'm not going to be one of those artists or activists or social change movement people that say that everything is going to be a path of light, because one of my mantras in my world is there's nothing happening within us that's not happening outside of us. So all the things we're seeing outside of us, to me, is just a reflection of what's happening within everyone. And if we can just make peace with the fact that we have this side of us that has both been the abuser and the abused, and we may not even see the ways we have abused ourselves. I'm not even talking about abusing other people. If we can reconcile and really make peace with the parts of us that have abused ourselves, how can we ask others that are abusing the world to do the same? That is why the inner work has to happen. The inner world, we must fertilize the soil of our inner world in order for us to regenerate and create fertile soil for the earth. Like, it's all synchronous and it's all a reflection of each other. We're just mirrors. So this veil of truth is simply a mirror of, and if you look, you can't zoom in, but you can see this imagery and symbolism from nature, because it truly is the best metaphor of life, right? The bee is both the worker bee who forgets their bigger role in the world, right? They don't know that if they die, that the whole ecosystem is affected by it. They just pollinate, they create the honey, they protect the queen. And just how beautiful of a metaphor that is. So I say all of this because when I'm channeling and when I'm tapping into source and when I'm in complete and utter flow, I'm in awe, because all I'm doing is just using my instrument of my body to express it all. And that's really the evolution of my work. It is something that I hope I continue to do. in platforms in which I can reach more people, because she needs to be heard. And I say she being spirit, Mother Earth, God, whatever it is that your faith is, but she has so much to say, and artists are compelled to speak on her behalf.
Yeah, beautiful, Sheila. And I love how you allow people to heal, because as you were saying, it's not always easy to go through your own journey, but going inwards. And I definitely found when I prepared this webinar, there are a lot of ties between you and Tanja that we've heard before in your messages. And your art looks completely different, but the messages are the same or similar. And that's also nice to see, because every artist obviously have their own sensitivity. And
I don't think it is a coincidence that Tanja took off and her work resonated as quickly and caught fire as fast as it did, because people are ready to receive her work. Not only is it exquisitely executed and beautifully expressed, but we have to give credit to the fact that people are waking up to the notion that they're ready to see and look within, and her messaging is so important, right? And this is all artists are doing. We're all coming up with different ways to share and express what is already in the collective unconscious. This is not me saying all of this. This is the collective unconscious wanting to be heard. And we have artists and dancers and musicians and singers trying to express the same thing. And whatever expression that is, you might hear it, but somebody else may not hear it. And that's all that's happening. And it's beautiful, which is why this movement is important. More of us need to get out there and express it.
yeah, I think you're very right. The artists are definitely reflecting, the mood of the day. It's a very simple way to say it. And this is why it was great to have people like you, like Tanja, like Valentine, and then Kiril following as well, with touching similar topics in his work too. So last question for you, because I'm conscious of time.
I answered it anyway, but
yeah, no. So you have full screen now, because we'll do a little collage of everybody's answers. So how do you see the role of the artist in driving change for people and planets, like a short summary?
well, I feel like I've already seeded all of it throughout the entire conversation, but our role is simply to reflect what the collective unconscious, Mother Earth and Spirit and God wants us to speak out loud in the expression in which, and the gifts in which we're able to express it. So whether that's visual art, music, dance, spoken word, whatever that is, let's speak on her behalf and allow people to receive it in the way that they can receive it.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much, Sheila. And thank you for joining, because I know you are part of another event, seminar, whatever it is.
Really honored, Ingrid. Great curation. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will let you go. So next artist is Kiril Jeliazkov. So originally from Bulgaria, Kiril has been living in the US for the past 20 years, and he is joining us from the area of Washington, D.C. He is an international artist who graduated in fine art from the prestigious Academy of Sofia before taking 2 masters in abstract art in Savannah, Georgia. Kiril is best known for the Orange Step, and we are going to share it in a minute. His work has also been chosen to represent his home country at the United Nations as part of an exhibit featuring 50 different artists from 50 different countries. Kiril is not only a sought-after artist and portrait artist with celebrity clients, ranging from rap stars to royals. He also believes in giving back and frequently supports charitable organizations. So let's welcome Kiril. Hi, Kiril.
Hi, Ingrid. How are you?
Very good. Nice to see some of your art behind you as well. I think we can see your abstract style already. That's great. So, Kiril, you are going to share with us 3 projects, all very different and supporting different causes. And we will start by showing the Orange Step project, because it has been and still is a very important one in your life and your career as an artist. So we are going to start by showing a video that gives you an idea of what this project is, and then we'll talk about it after.
The Orange Step project was born. I will exhibit my art outdoor. 128 massive paintings, 20 by 10 feet. Let me just burst, free myself, let it loose, and see what happens. The world became my gallery. By putting it in the downtown park in a major city, you instantaneously reach everyone. From a small child, to an adult, to a beggar, to a lawyer. It is an experience, the Orange Step. My mission as an artist became to inspire others, to truly unite others, challenge you in a good way.
Okay, so the Orange Step, Kiril, I actually really love that quote from you. I created the Orange Step with the idea that art is for everyone. Therefore, the ideal gallery for it is Mother Nature. So there is a really strong inclusivity message, and you also mentioned this in the video that, you know, anybody can appreciate the art, from a beggar to a lawyer and everybody in between. Do you want to tell us a few words about this project? How was it born?
Yes, the project Orange Step was born in 2005, 2006, after a small revelation or big revelation that galleries, institutions of this kind are usually the ones that try to determine a so-called success of an artist or an individual, creative individual, and you have to go through certain procedures to be a so-called even artist. So just one day I said, that's it, the world becomes my gallery and I will exhibit my art outdoor, even in my backyard. And quite a radical decision, locked myself in a full basketball gymnasium as a studio for 2 years, and just bought a lot of supplies. And as you can see, I love scale and sizes, just because I think it's still limited, but I feel like expressing myself the best way. I come from a very traditional background in the 90s, passing through all the old masters, academic way of art education, which I consider blessed to go through that system. French, Russian academic way of drawing from the old masters, paintings, so portraitures, figurative. And then in the late 90s, I moved to US, hungry to explore and burst in a different way. Interesting enough, I remember Sheila said that she started drawing on April 19th, which is my birthday.
Oh, yes.
And, no coincidence, and the message of hers is wonderful about everything. But the past 37 years, I started when I was 9, luckily, to knowing, not believing, knowing that I am an artist. There's a big difference, because the conversation kind of led from the previous speakers about spirituality and a lot of things and encouragements. In my opinion, is very important to, once you get into that realm of expressing any art form, is really, hard work is not even enough. You have to have that, probably in the beginning, a belief, but it transforms to knowing. And When you know that you have two arms, you know you have two arms. You don't believe you have two arms. You know. And so that's my life. And no, and it's a unforceful, not forceful knowing. And that's what wakes me up every morning for the past 37 years, knowing what I truly love doing, disregarding what others think, as long as you don't hurt others. It's a very peaceful thing, because everybody can do whatever they want to do. Yes and no. Some people might want to do a lot of damage. Again, I would say, as long as it's a very peaceful, and it has to have boundaries. That's how life is in this physical realm. Number one thing is, I believe in perfection. And to encourage Tanja, we're all perfect. We cannot not be perfect. Weaknesses, positiveness, beauty, everything is part of this unique experience called life, which we all are blessed of. That's the number one thing that you, in my opinion, a person, if I'm sharing my life with somebody, I would encourage to start with that. It's a bold statement, but it's true. You can, it's almost a blasphemy if you say you're not perfect. Yeah. And don't get me going with the thing of how we appeared in this world and the whole 9 yards of science, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I won a battle against close to 200 million things, and I reached the egg where everything began, and 9 months later I appeared, and 47 years later I'm here, expressing myself and sharing with you my personal view of life. Yeah, I think that's a extremely positive and encouraging message to everyone, which is true based on facts and science. It's not just a dream. It's a reality. And the orange step was a burst, pretty much letting it completely loose, coming from that traditional background of realism, old masters, knowing it all since extremely early age, hundreds and thousands of hours of creating things that, in a way, I was placed there. I had to go through a lot of competitiveness there with the system, that part of the communism in Bulgaria, where that's how it was. And again, it's not for everyone. Yes, go ahead and express yourself the way you like in life. Create art, unlimited, think, just create. I think it's beyond that. It's not enough just to create. It goes deeper than that. And it's like, no one forces you to grab a book and read it at night or in the morning, or spending 10, 12 hours in the studio alone, meditating, praying, practicing gratitude, which is number one thing that everything has been happening for me in the past 10 years. I really am focusing on inner gratitude about everything, completely satisfied, disregarding whatever situation you are. It's scary. You might be experiencing something extremely negative in a physical realm, whatever that is, a loss of a near one, a breakup in the relationships, things like this. It's how you react, and that's where the knowing comes of. The knowing of what? The knowing that you're perfect and you're in the image of the perfection, which is the ultimate thing. People call it God or energy or anything. I mean, but you have to know it. You have to make yourself knowing that. Erase the word belief, erase the word hope. All these things is big time transfer. Start practicing gratitude, etc., etc. So the rest is you wake up You feel and you keep going. Working extremely hard it's not anymore work when you're one of those true artists that are very few of them are left behind. New are appearing big time, but still my teaching, if I ever become a teacher, which I am, I meet a lot of people nonstop, but my message is, are you ready for a full-time dedication without you being forced? It requires a lifetime thing. And I was also lucky and blessed not to have social media when I started as an artist. And the Orange Step was created, and the first show, second show, was when nothing existed. It was the beginning of some Facebook and things like this. Now, with the digital and the social media world, you have an amazing so-called freedom and access. Well, yes. And at the same time, no. Yes, you can reach a lot of people, yes, and et cetera, et cetera. But how do you know? We should ask ourselves, how do you really know what you're sharing is actually really helping others? You don't know. This is the ultimate truth. We don't know anything about anything.
Art, yeah, it's open to interpretation. So let's move to your two other projects, Kiril, because they all support the promotion of sustainable fashion, but both projects link with two different causes, one about refugees, one about wildlife conservation. So let's start with the first one, and we are going to browse through the slides. So the first project was in support of a UK-based charity called Give Your Best. And they give free clothing to refugees in the UK. So that links nicely back to the poem from Valentine as well. And you did create a very special piece of artwork as a live performance. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, that was the involvement with a beautiful sustainability brand called Troon House Atelier, which is a fashion sustainable brand that is 100% sustainable from scratch to the end. And we collaborated with Give Your Best Foundation in London. So they asked me to come up with something exciting, something interesting. Beside me working on the shoes, the Troon shoes collection, and customizing them, that we auctioned and donated at the proceeds for the foundation Give Your Best. I wanted to make it something exciting and interesting that I created that run on canvas, where I made all the models and wear the shoes and walk, and before they walk, they dip their shoes in different colors and create that collaboration of all of them and us piece of footprints. And we auctioned it, and the proceeds went again back to the foundation. So the message again is, it's unlimited how you can give back as an artist, and especially when you establish yourself in this round called fame. Yeah. Once you become well known, a brush stroke can go a long way. And imagine how many brush strokes you can create per day. I donate between 50 to 100 pieces on a yearly basis, where we raise more than $500,000 out as a simple small artist in this area, for example.
Yeah, so we're going to hear from the founder of Give Your Best, the charity, in a minute. So this project took place about a couple of years ago, I think. And it was part of a fashion show called the Good Fashion Show. So let's hear from the founder.
The Good Fashion Show was an idea because we wanted to celebrate the women in our community. We want them to be center stage and to show themselves as the beautiful, fashionable women that they are, and also to celebrate the sustainable brands that have partnered with us to dress our models, and just to discuss fashion for good and to raise awareness about fashion for good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example that shows how art can support both sustainable fashion and refugees as causes. And you created a beautiful live experience that evening as part of the fashion show, and it totally made the evening. I remember the atmosphere there, and the founder still is talking about it to this day. So let's move to the last project, Kiril, which was also in support of Trön and sustainable fashion. But this time it was in collaboration with an Australian organization called Wild Earth Oceania. And you collaborated with Dr. Stephen Ambrose, with a renowned scientist specializing on wildlife. And he selected 10 species endemic from Australia for you to paint, and again, to raise funds for a good cause. So let's play again a short video that brings this project to life and brings us on a journey to Australia. So we can see the iconic koala that you have also painted here in the center. And to give an idea of what the project was about, really the Trön, the fashion brand, used your paintings as a backdrop to the fashion collection. But even more than that, they linked the color of the garments to the colors of your paintings as an inspiration. So we can see some examples here showing your paintings bigger behind the models, which were virtual models. Tanja, if she was here, would probably like this. And some further examples here with the hammerhead shark, for example, freshwater fish, or I think it's a lizard, dragon something, I can't remember the name. And then you also created an auction in partnership with Wild Earth Oceania to raise funds for them. So that's another really beautiful example of collaboration project where the power of art really can bring a whole campaign to life. I'm going to stop sharing. So we are running a bit out of time. This is why I'm speeding a bit through it. But last question for you, Kiril. How do you see the role of the artist in driving change for people and planet?
Well, the will to help, the will to use your knowledge, your skills, your life, and support any ideas. I encourage be open to anything. whatever fields. You can't help everything. You focus on something that is passionate to your heart, your energy, the hard work, and the full dedication without expectations. When you give, you give. And it's an inner thing. It's an inner thought process where only the ultimate knows if you're sincere enough or not. And it's a very playful game that once you tap to that realm, I think you become almost unstoppable.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Kiril, and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Ingrid. Amazing, amazing.
So let's bring Charlotte up and a short introduction to start with. So Charlotte is a Chinese-Canadian artist living in Switzerland and the founder of Qin Theory Studio and the NGO Meeting of Waters. She uses her art as a vehicle to advocate for water, and her first solo exhibition in Geneva in 2021 was awarded the Water Challenge Award by the Swiss Water Partnership. So the mission of Charlotte is to elevate the cultural value of water through activism and to inform and educate the public about water-related issues. So welcome to Creative Voices, Charlotte.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you, everyone who came to listen, and also the panelists who really show amazing talents and vulnerabilities with their stories, and also expertise. This is this is a quote that Ingrid had synthesized. I really felt like art is something is missing in the water dialogue, which is very much intersecting climate change, management, policies. Every aspect of our life touches upon water. And water is also an element that inspires a lot of artists, despite cultures and geography, but also, let's say, history. Historically, we have painters painting waters in all kinds of different styles. But for me personally, to have someone who's exclusive about the subject is rather different. It's not to say that I'm unique, but I actually come from a different background, which is more in the science field. So I studied physics for my bachelor, slowly moving into art. I had a transition with a degree in London called Innovation Design Engineering, which is a double master taught at Imperial and RCA. They kind of combine my two sides of the brain. But I had I always have the spirit of truth seeking. That's for one of the reasons I studied physics for my bachelor, thinking that I will find truth in science. And the truth about my art is also this very unique subject, water. I've been following for years, since I was a child, since I was a curious physics student and also designer trying to save the world, creating sustainability solutions. It's always touching my heart. And I did not expect that I will become a water artist drastically, full-time, immediately. That was around the time Sheila came to my life. We actually followed each other. She mentioned that we knew each other before. So I just want to recap the story from my side. We had each other on Instagram since I started my master in London. I was following her, seeing her consistent work. And all of a sudden she was this, like, I don't know, million follower Instagram famous character. And we connected in person first time when I found my first job in Geneva, Switzerland. And that was really the time when I had my breakdown mental health wise. I've always felt, I think I suffered mental health for a decade, but I was pulling it really well together. And it was only when COVID happened and yeah, it all broke down. And I had to take a pause on everything, and art was at the time the thing that supported me mentally, as a personal salvation. But also just like there are days I could only do art, and I passed the day by doing art. Miraculously, I had my first exhibition that year, 2021, and I also started selling my work. I could take it, I definitely went through a phase where I was just like, oh wow, I'm so talented. But then right now I look back, I was like, wow, these people really supported me financially and right, emotionally, financially, everything through a really very difficult space when I was suffering mentally. So a lot of the work, as you see my background, I'm in my living room right now, but some of the pieces are here. And a lot of my work has um, just like a dark side, even though it looked beautiful, but I was going through a lot of emotions that I couldn't process otherwise. So, but in the end, everything comes back to water. I started using water, using my art as a vehicle to tell the water stories, exhibitions, and getting whatever like famous artists was not my goal, was never my goal. It was more like I want to tell the story of water. And somehow it's also easier for an artist to kind of take that pressure of succeeding off the shoulder. I want to really share my love for water, the sensibility that I feel for water. And there are times I was sitting at the rivers, and there was one painting, which is not shown here. I was from happiness to misery to anger. It was because I just imagined the water in Switzerland flowing all the way down in a river and going to the ocean, and on the way, how much pollution and compromisation, right? Like getting canalized and straightened, and some of the rivers don't even reach the oceans, and that's why we have some oceans drying up, like inland oceans. So moving forward with my story, I created an NGO to advocate for art, advocate water through my art. And in the second year, we are very, it was out of my own ambition that I wanted to be on the international stage. So since 2022, we've been bringing our art as a form of activism to the stage, to conferences, and this is one of the paintings from this year, River of Peace, which was done in the International Cooperation Conference in Switzerland, where the Swiss presidents, former presidents, and also different policy makers invited speakers to talk about water and peace, and water as a tool for peacemaking. This is also one of our events this year as an NGO. I created this painting in public. It's kind of like a installation where people walk around, and it was demonstrating how you actually need to step over the river, which I was painting. This one is only like a zoom in of the image, but the original is 2 meters long.
So I wanted to show a bit of your work to give people a flavor of what you do and really start to jump into your universe that focuses on water, which is quite unusual. And that's why I think many people are attracted to your art as well. So you're sharing with us today 2 projects, which were live performances you created at 2 events. So do you want to share with us the first one here?
For sure. So as I mentioned, we've created this NGO called Meeting of Waters. And the first year we had created very successful events in Geneva, telling the story of glaciers and oceans. And it was also through a technique of anthropomorphism. So if we think about mythologies, we often personify certain natural forces. And because water is so abstract, it's so formless, it's everything, but yet we don't understand, we don't see it. Let's say, imagine we have SDGs, 17 SDGs. A lot of them have their own public imageries, right? Poverty, gender equality, we can sympathize because it's more human. And on the environmental level, we lose half of the audience because a lot of them just don't get in touch with nature. But then when it gets to water, we lose even more people, because how many of us can feel the pain of water, right? When we see a polluted river all our lives, it's been normalized. We never question, or even I basically started questioning when in my 20s, right? Like, how do we get here? Why do we allow this to happen to our water? So our message as an NGO is to really tap into people's emotions, because decisions are made from emotions, even though we try to be rational species. And at the policy level, top down or individual, we all make ton of decisions every day. But I believe water is really an emotional element that gives possibilities for us to feel emotions. Therefore, solving water issues needs an emotional opening in people's heart, in people's work. And that's the reason why we are bringing this kind of demonstration to the water conferences. And the biggest one happened to be last year at the New York United Nations headquarters in New York City. It was the first freshwater conference and that United Nations had held in 30 years. So it was once in a generation conference. I was carrying this long canvas that you see on the screen over from Switzerland to New York. It was 5 meters long. We rolled it down in Central Park and I started painting. I never thought I would be a street artist, you know. I thought I would be maybe painting in a conference hall or maybe in a very nice hotel. And I even brought like this white dress. And in the end, I was still wearing a white dress, but shivering because it was like March, still very cold, and it was raining all day. Everything was wet, as if it was just a water theme for the day. And we attracted a lot of people who come into the park, and some of them share their stories about water, and they cried right there. There was something in the air that just bring people close to water and open themselves up emotionally. One of the lady was just sharing about her son being a swimmer, and the other, I think there were 2 tourists were just sharing about their first memories of water. And there were just so many stories captured there. And in the end, there were also some delegates, Swiss delegations and Belgian delegations that we know from our network came by. So that was kind of our experiment, how to do it abroad, right? Bringing the story of water from Geneva to the world.
Yeah, beautiful story, and on a global scene, which is nice, especially as a lot of the Arts for the Future Festival is taking place in New York as well. I'm going to start by sharing a video first, Charlotte, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it just after. So for people who are attending, it's just over 2 minutes. So you can sit back and relax, grab a glass of water, and then we are back at the end of the video.
Cheers.
Happy mountain passes through wetland, and then it encounters a desert. It can continue flowing anymore. What a cried instead. The desert is my destiny. Water rushes down, a waterfall from a high mountain.
Charlotte, can you tell us about this beautiful piece you created? So that was during COP28, right, in Dubai?
Yes. Part of this video was also contributed by a singer called Yana Man, who's based in Dubai. And this is like the last one in New York. This is our third intervention in 2022, bringing water art to a conference space that is rather sterile or rational. And with the support of Cultural and Entertainment Pavilion, we had a 2-hour slot towards the end of the conference, and we attracted many audiences who were very wary of the whole 10-day conference. And then we had just like this release, sharing poetries, stories of water while I was painting. And we had 2 musicians present who were also sharing their talent and artistic expressions. One of them is Annabelle Ho from Hong Kong, and the other one is a singer in the story. And this poetry was contributed by a Chinese artist, which is about how a water vapor was, no, a river actually, a river encountered the desert, and she just cried, "I cannot cross the desert as water. There's no place for me. It's a dead end." And then the wind said to the water, "Hey, water, you're not only water. You can become vapor, and I'll carry you over the desert." And this poem reminded me of so much when we seem to reach a dead end in our life situations, and we search our past, our data, right? Our past experiences. There's no useful solutions, but then we just stay there. We have this faith that things will come through. In the end, we always overcome the difficulties. Like, we are here for this reason. And I look back at my career, not only as an artist, but also an activist in the climate and water sector. Every project was a miracle. Every year was a miracle. I always achieved what I wanted to, what I had envisioned in the beginning of the year. My career is completely nonsense. I just have this vision, this art piece I wanted to create, and I got no money. I look for money, and it pays everything, and I create it. And then we have a video like this. And this year we're doing this again at COP29. And this time we are going to bring in the performance of water and faith. And faith is a subject I really would like to raise in the sector. So at COP, there often is an interfaith dialogue, a kind of exist, also in the international space in Geneva. More than 1/3 of the world population practices certain religion, but we seem to build a world and policy science in a very secular, atheist way. And this is the reason why to raise the topic of religion and faith in the subject of water is very, very important, as water is regarded as holy and the essence of life in all world's religions. And this is also how God shows his love to us by creating this gift of life, a foundation of life, and all the beauties is as if he was speaking to us how much he's loved us.
Yeah. So it will be COP29. I think it's in
Azerbaijan.
Yeah, in November, right?
Yeah. So I was speaking about this is also to bring up every time we do a performance, we bring up the local issues regarding water in Azerbaijan. The Caspian Sea is drying up because of all the dams built on the rivers, and it's no longer going to the sea. And this is definitely going to be integrated with this topic, but we're going to touch people's heart through faith. And there's something deeper. There is a God hole in each one of us that we're made to worship. And water is something indigenous in all of us as well, as we try to understand life, as me following water as my spiritual journey.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Charlotte. I really loved having you today because your focus on water is so essential. It touches so many issues we have in the world. But through these two examples you've shared with us at massive global conferences, and it's only the beginning because you're already planning the next ones. It really brings the voice of water to these global stages, and that's really important. So last question for you. How do you see the role of the artist in driving change for people and planet?
I have two reflections on this question. They come with very recent conversations and experiences. And one of them is art being this authentic voice in the world. If speaking as myself, I haven't been associated with anything since the beginning of my career. I collaborate with governments or international organizations, but it's just a form of collaboration. I was able to touch upon people's heart and make contacts because I was authentic. When I talk about water, I'm not shy to express my disappointment, my pain, and also my hope. I think there's something in me that is, I think the goal is to bring hope, because I've come from as I mentioned, a very devastated mental health state. And I also know how many young generations are suffering due to the anxieties of climate change. And my job right now, especially through the NGO that we've built, is to bring hope through art, bring hope by also uniting different sectors in our societies to work out solutions. That's my practical side. So I think art is that uniting force, the authentic voice that bring out everyone's authenticity without the jargons of, oh my, I'm gonna get fired, like if I. But she's an artist. She can speak about things we're afraid. So that's kind of like my from speaking from my experience. Hopefully, I don't get put in prison anytime. But I'll survive if I'll be really productive in prison one day, I hope. A second reflection I have is actually I was thinking about how art is kind of escaping the political dialogues. Okay, this is something I am not yet ready to formulate properly in words, because water is a very politicized topic, regarding wars, water and peace. Water has to, as a human, we can pretend that we're neutral, but in reality, there might not be neutrality. There's only good and bad. So how would I choose, right? As an artist, when in a war, what would the water say if I am the water in this reservoir of a city and I get polluted because the army wanted to attack this neighborhood, right? And there is truth in this story. There's evil and there's good. So I believe art is also can be a channel for truth in this case. This is the best I can.
Yeah, but definitely. And I think we've heard that from the other artists. You can only be authentic when you create art, and certainly good art. So thank you so much for joining today, Charlotte. I really loved talking to you again. So bringing the next artist, Rachel Brooks, who is an internationally acclaimed wildlife artist and scientific illustrator based in the Scottish island town of Oban. Welcome, Rachel, to this webinar. Thank you for joining because you are freshly back from your honeymoon in South Africa.
Yeah, hi, no problem at all.
Hopefully you're very refreshed for today.
Yeah.
So Rachel, we are going to share two of your conservation-related projects, but I wanted to start by sharing two short video reels that show you in action illustrating, and I have to say I could be watching this all day long. So Rachel, it's just so beautiful. It's very short videos, but I've been following you on Instagram for probably years, and you've gathered a lot of followers there who appreciate your work as well. So you wanted to share these pictures, which I love because that shows you in nature, and I think that's an important part of your work. That's where it starts, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in zoology. I didn't study art formally, and so I graduated and went traveling and then got into the wildlife guiding and scuba industry, and I did that for almost a decade. And then kind of just felt the pull to come back to creating. But a lot of that time that I spent in that field has really influenced what I do. And so we'll get into it a little bit more with the pieces, but there is quite a lot of a scientific theme, not only in the scientific illustration side of what I do, where it's kind of got that hint of nostalgia towards classic scientific illustration when that was what would have been used before photography, but also the themes in my work where I really like exploring especially based on like biodiversity and ecosystems and how different species interact with each other. But yeah, I like the two here together because it kind of shows that it starts with going out in the field and seeing these things firsthand. And a big part of what I do is wanting to share that with others, because that was my occupation before being an artist, was taking people out into these wild spaces and showing them wildlife for the first time and taking them underwater for the first time. So that is a big passion of mine and something that I really like to try and move forward with my art as well.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think we can see that in your art, that it really reflects a deep passion that you've gathered all over the world. So, and I can't remember if I mentioned this, but your work focuses on marine wildlife in particular, right?
Yeah, it does have a really strong focus on marine wildlife. I am just back from South Africa though, and my mind's just buzzing with we saw a lot of rhino, and all I want to do right now is draw rhinos. But sharks are one of the main focuses of my art, especially because I worked with them for a long time. Again, it's that lived experience that influences a lot of what I do. And when I moved back to Scotland, it was to work with basking sharks. And they're just really misunderstood creatures. And I think it's a 70% collapse in oceanic shark and ray populations in the last 50 years. They really need to like shift that perception people have of them. So I do really like to focus on those, not only because of the threat that they're under, but they're just wildly diverse. And if you look at all the different species of sharks and rays we have, there's so many different colors and patterns and textures and sizes and behaviors, that they just leave just so much inspiration for me anyway.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how many species of sharks there are. There are many.
Yeah, I think it's over 500.
Okay. Let's share your first conservation project called Jonco. So who is Jonco?
Jonco, yeah. So when I came back to the UK, I was working as a wildlife guide in the Hebrides. And not many people know that we have a resident orca population here in the UK. So we do get visiting orca, which people might be more familiar with up in Shetland and Orkney. But in the Inner Hebrides on the west coast where I live, there is an orca population called the West Coast Community. So those orca have been documented here since the early 1990s. And there's only thought to be 2 individuals left. And unfortunately, both of those individuals are male. So you don't need to be a zoologist to work out that that's not going to work going forwards. So sadly, they're classed as functionally extinct. And they're a really rare ecotype of orca that we have here now. So Jonco is actually the name of one of the male bull orca in that pod. He's the one with the big notch out of his dorsal fin. The younger male is called Aquarius. Jonco is quite iconic in the whale watching community here just because of his size. He's the older male in the pods, and he is huge. Because they're marine mammal feeding specialist orca that we have here, they think he's probably up there with like some of the biggest orca in the world. So he's a really, really interesting individual, and the story behind them, yeah, I found it deeply, deeply upsetting. So when I moved here and heard that you had the ability to see orca, but you know, it's very, very rare to see. They cover huge distances. They could be in the Inner Hebrides one day and Ireland in just a few days later. But I was fortunate to see them on quite a few occasions on the time that I've spent at sea here. And I just felt really moved by quite fortunate to see these animals that we will most definitely lose within our lifetime. So it was really special. And I wanted to kind of share the story of them. So the reason that we think that the rest of the pod have died out is due to pollution and toxicity. So one of the females in the pod was washed up on one of the islands called Tiree back in 2016. And the biopsy on her tissues revealed that it was over 80% and 80 times higher than the accepted level of PCB contamination. And at that time, she was the most polluted animal ever recorded, which is pretty terrifying. I think most people think, you know, water pollution is an issue in other countries, but maybe our water's nice and clean, and actually we're seeing this huge bioaccumulation issue in marine mammals here. So it causes infertility, and they think that's why there was no calves ever recorded in that pod since studies began on them. And that's why we're left with the 2 males that there are. So the piece really wanted to kind of show the environment here of the Hebrides as a whole. There's different iconic animals that you'll see here, like basking sharks, seals, different megafauna, but also the really small stuff as well that like builds up this picture. Because everything is so connected, and the reason that these animals have ended up with this fate is because of the overall ecosystem and the food chain and different elements of that. But there's also like the outlines of the islands, and I wanted to show how like linked they were to our like heritage as well, and that we're losing these animals from this area.
Yeah, I mean, the work you've done on the skin of the animal is amazing. Actually, I've included a closer up so we can see you while you're drawing. Cool, I guess, that we see here at an exhibition. And then I wanted to bring this even bigger close up because, I mean, it is amazing. Yeah, beautiful work. And I love also that you're coming just after Charlotte, who is really advocating for water conservation because there is a direct link with marine wildlife as well. As outlined. So we can see also the consequences of water pollution.
Yeah, absolutely. So PCB is what was detected in the orca population is a runoff from industrial activity on land. So yes, they are very, very linked. And yeah, I chose this piece. It's an earlier piece I did, but it was the first in this style, and this style's kind of become a bit of a signature for me. So yeah.
I must have some of your pieces at home.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing this first project. So let's move to the second project, which is called the Anthropocene. So for people who wouldn't know what Anthropocene means, can you explain it and then give us some background about this project in particular?
Yeah, so again, this is a really early piece that I did. It's a few years old now, and it's probably one of the first pieces I did that kind of delved into like artivism and trying to show big conservation topics in an artwork. But so the Anthropocene is an unofficial epoch of time, and it's referring to the time in which human activity has started to really escalate things like extinction rates and changes of ecosystems and environments. So it's kind of unofficial scientific term, but it's reflecting the time period that we're living in now.
Yeah. So that's a close-up of the piece. So I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it quick. But I wanted to kind of reflect the loss of biodiversity and time that we're experiencing at the moment. And so in the hourglass, you've got this concept of time, which is quite familiar to everyone, that you can visibly see the time moving. And so in the top, you've got things from all over different parts of the world. And in the bottom, we have like species that are very recognizably extinct, like the dodo and the great auk and the thylacine. And then between the two, like you've got the loss of color, trying to reflect the loss of biodiversity. And we've got the bird that's flying up is a spix macaw, and then these beautiful blues. And I kind of wanted to keep that one in color because they're presumed extinct in the wild. So you've got these species that are kind of like, on the edge, and it's whether we can flip that and change the fate of them. So yeah, it has a lot of time elements in this, I guess, with the framing.
Yeah, love it. That's such a powerful visual. It speaks for itself, really. So we see a bit more of a close-up on the animals. I love your explanations behind it as well. And so it's part of you've done it for an organization.
So it's the Climate Creatives Challenge is like it's an ongoing design challenge, and they've got a different prompt for each one, and it's great because it accepts lots of different mediums of art. So there's poetry and photography and all sorts of different things, and I think it ties quite nicely into the idea that there's not one way to communicate something. But I kind of did this piece originally just off the bat because I think I was feeling quite a lot of eco-anxiety, and it was something I really wanted to communicate, and I struggled to talk about topics like this that I find a little bit overwhelming. And yeah, I ended up just channeling it into a drawing. But it kind of fitted the brief for this really well. So I entered into that, and it was commended in that challenge. So it's a piece that I'd really love to redraw now, like a few years down the line, where I feel like it would look totally different again. But...
Oh, perfect. So same question to finish with you, Rachel. How do you see the role of the artist in driving change for people and planet?
Yeah, so I think as a society, we're very, very detached from nature. And the way I always like to use my art, not only for like direct artivism, but is to just engage people back to nature. And I think that's such an important step in moving in any direction with conservation, is people have to care about something, and to care about something, you have to know about it. So it's that fundamental bridge, I think, because art opens dialogues, and it invites you to come to your own thoughts and conclusions as well, in ways that maybe visual photos, people can find it easier to scroll past. Maybe you see harsh images of animals entrapped in plastic, and we don't want to see them, you know. People are trying to switch off, but an artwork can kind of invite you to think about that yourself without pushing it in your face in the same way. It's this different approach that I think is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that, Rachel. It was such a pleasure to have you today, because I admire your work so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
This event today is actually the first one I'm organizing with Scarlet Red Mag, but the second one, which should take place end of November, beginning December, is in partnership with the Marine Diaries, and we are going to focus on ocean pollution, and especially plastic pollution, and there's so much to say around that. So thank you so much for joining us today.
No worries, thank you.
And we are going to move to Cole Stirling. So let me check where I am in my papers. So our next and last but one artist today is Cole Stirling. Born and raised in Zimbabwe, Cole is an award-winning artist. He has been a finalist of the David Shepherd Wildlife Artist of the Year exhibition for several years in a row. His passion for wildlife started at a very early age. His earliest memories include early morning drives in his beloved Hwange National Park. And art came as a byproduct and a way to express his passion. And thanks God, he is creating art today, because what he does is absolutely beautiful, as you will see in a minute. So let's welcome Cole. Hi, Cole. So
Hi there, how are you going?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry, we're a bit late, but
no problem. It's been awesome to hear. What a awesome panel. Really inspiring.
Yeah. So I'm so glad to have you today, because same as what I was saying to Rachel, I followed you for a few years. Love your art, which is more monochrome, and I think you are one of the two artists today who is colorblind. The next one after you is as well, so that's quite funny. But I think it is between the people I invited today that are actually quite weird. So similar to Rachel, it's nice to start with these two images of you, because it shows your two passions being in the wild, perhaps even stronger for you. And then illustrating, obviously. And there is always this kind of dichotomy of being an artist, and you need to go out, you need to gather inspiration, but then when you illustrate, you're kind of in between four walls. Is it like this for you?
Yes, definitely. And I think, you know, as you said in the kind of intro, art being a byproduct of kind of my love of nature, it's almost in a selfish way an escapism for me. You know, a lot of artists have talked about kind of mental health and you know, dealing with kind of mental health and that. And I guess art is an escape for me, an escape back to the wilds, an escape back to that moment in time. A lot of the works that I work on are captured from kind of reference photos that I've taken. So it's almost an indulgence of going back into that memory and trying to encapsulate that in the page, and then kind of transfer that feeling and kind of some of what it was like to be there, hopefully to the viewer, and then go through to kind of engage and open up, kind of conversation, which is what we've all kind of aiming to do and have focused on. It's a common theme with every single artist that's kind of chatted. So yes, there is definitely a dichotomy, but I guess I use it to mentally escape back to that place, so the four walls kind of melt away when I'm stuck into a piece.
Oh, that's beautifully said. And I think, it's been a feeling from the other artists as well, that art provides an escape as well, or a way to express your emotions. That's beautiful. So with Rachel, we have looked at marine wildlife. With you, it's more life on land, if I'm correct.
Yes. Yeah.
You're going to share, we are going to share 4 of your artworks. So let's have a look at the first one. Very powerful.
Yes. So, I mean, this is one of those pieces where it kind of takes me back to the moment in kind of capturing and encapsulating this work. And we were lucky enough to trek with mountain gorillas in Bwindi National Forest in Uganda. And this was kind of a piece that I've had in my mind's eye, but just couldn't really find the image to encapsulate it. Always wanted to do something with mountain gorillas. Not only are they kind of a talisman for conservation, and the fact that they aren't out of the kind of risky status just yet, but they kind of clawing their way back from the brink of extinction. And we were lucky enough to spend some time with a group of gorillas, and the kind of key thing that gets put across when you spend time with them is just the awe and aura that they create. They're so closely related to humans, and very, I guess, differently amongst the two kind of big ape species that in Africa. You think of chimpanzees, and then there's gorillas. Chimpanzees are quite a volatile group of apes at kind of the best of times, and maybe encapsulate the worst of humanity sometimes when they're shown on wildlife documentaries and stuff like that, whereas gorillas seem the exact opposite, and the kind of family bonds and the protection that especially the silverback shows over the group is just mind-boggling. So to spend an hour in their presence was something that had always been something I wanted to do, and was very much a life-changing experience, and tried to just encapsulate that in this piece. Tried to encapsulate the feeling of being there, the kind of gentleness in the eyes of a silverback that's also backed up by the strength of this, I don't know, 180 kg animal that could annihilate you at any point in time, but doesn't want to, just wants to keep its family safe, kind of suss you out, see what's going on. And then kind of the most beautiful part of it is at one point in time he realizes, no, you're not really a threat, and just kind of walks off. And then all the youngsters come and interact and engage, and really is kind of an amazing experience.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I actually love you started with this one, because as you said, we are so closely related. And, when we're so disconnected today from the natural world, or not taking it into account enough in the picture of what we do and how we develop human activities, it's good to remember our closest cousins, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
So let's move to the second piece, very powerful as well. So can you tell us about it, Feeding Frenzy?
Yes, I think this is also a kind of piece that I've wanted to do for a long time, and have kind of conceptualized, and it's kind of the opposite of the other piece where we really can connect with gorillas and you know, they're so closely related to us. The piece kind of speaks for itself. These two species are something that humans don't maybe connect with on the same level. You know, often vilified, hyenas and vultures. I find them some of the most fascinating species and beautiful. I mean, if you've ever spent some time with hyenas, and especially with hyenas at a hyena den with their cubs, I defy anyone to think that they are a nasty, kind of grotesque species that's you know, of no use. The same goes for vultures. I think there's an absolute beauty in them. And in this piece, I was kind of trying to highlight the two of them performing a very kind of integral part of what they do in the environment, in the ecosystem, and kind of showing that the ecosystem is all linked, and you can't have one without the other. You can't have you know, prey without apex predators to kind of control them. You can't have that relationship without the relationship of the kind of scavengers to go up and clean up the environment, and everything in the natural environment is intricately linked. You take one species out of that and the whole thing comes crumbling down, which is unfortunately the case, I guess, if you think a bit of the message behind this, but maybe wasn't quite on the surface. The fact that the main kind of threat to vultures is not kind of poaching in the wildlife trade, but is you know, poachers trying to kill vultures en masse because they're such a good indicator of where carcasses and dead animals are, and that, you know, really kind of brings authorities to where these wildlife crimes are, and the poachers don't really want that. They want people as far away from a rhino or an elephant carcass as they can be to give them the chance to get away. So they end up poisoning kind of vultures en masse as a kind of byproduct to not have them as the indicators of a crime.
Yeah, beautiful piece and beautiful messages behind it. Really glad you are bringing them up today, because sometimes we think some animals are a nuisance when every single creature on Earth has a role. And I really love the messages. I also really love what you mentioned about the fact that sometimes some animals can be portrayed in seemingly bad behavior when there's so much more to them. So thank you for bringing up these messages and this piece to us today. So next one, I can't remember which one it is. Oh yes, it's one from you. I love it. So I actually think the title says it all, but please tell us about it.
Yeah, so this was a piece that was done for a conservation society that was working in the kind of Zambezi catchment area, which obviously the Zambezi runs across the north of Zimbabwe, so it's pretty close to kind of home. And this was a piece that they kind of asked me to do around the pangolin, which was their kind of symbol, and trying to encapsulate their conservation message. And I guess we talk about the big species, you know, I found it really illuminating what Rachel was saying, and her work is beautiful, but around how disconnected we are from nature and kind of understanding. And oftentimes species like the pangolin go unnoticed, but it's actually the most trafficked species in the world. You know, estimates go between kind of 10,000 and 2.7 million pangolins are trafficked a year. I think I saw a stat that there was 2.3 or 23.5 tons of pangolin scales kind of confiscated just in 2021, it may have been. And most people you speak to wouldn't have an idea what a pangolin looked like, you know, if it walked across in front of them. So this piece was trying to encapsulate shining a light on the pangolin, and kind of bringing in the human element as well to show the kind of the fragility of nature and conservation is both kind of caused by us, but also in our hands, unfortunately. You know, if we don't do something about it, then these creatures don't stand much hope. So it's trying shine a light on the pangolin as a species, but also our role to play in the kind of putting them in that predicament, but also our role in trying to drag all of these species kind of out.
Yeah, I really love that you brought this issue to the webinar today, because we are not so aware of the size of wildlife trade and how much of an issue it is for some species, to the point that it's bringing them to the brink of extinction. Is it just missing this, or did you do it on purpose, that the shape of an animal is like a heart?
It's always interesting when different people do it. It wasn't done on purpose. I can see it now. I really loved that. It almost encapsulates the pangolin's defense mechanism, which is to roll up into a ball, but it's kind of slowly opening out, to slowly kind of accept the help, kind of show that it's not in danger. Or you could read it the other way, that it is in danger and it's going in. But I like to think of it that, hopefully we're helping it and it's slowly unraveling. But I can now see the heart symbolism in it as well.
Happy coincidence. Yeah, that's a beautiful piece. I absolutely love that one. That one is on your shop as well. I want to mention this. So a last piece that you're sharing with us today, called Running Towards Extinction.
Yes. So this originally was also kind of a piece. 90% of my pieces are, I've got an idea, I've got a concept in my mind's eye, and then it's just about trying to find the reference photos or go and get the reference photos to kind of realize it. And this was one of those pieces. And I think, as we've all said as artists, there's that struggle to try and put across the social commentary that we have in our heads that's important to us. And this was a piece where I was trying to put across that kind of idea of extinction and how we're slowly erasing these animals from the face of the earth. And if we don't pay attention, over time, they will slowly just disappear without us knowing. So it was a triptych of a tiger running and kind of slowly disappearing, I guess, going back to kind of gorillas that people know about, kind of high profile conservation species. Tigers are probably one of the most kind of high profile conservation species. Also teetering on the brink of extinction, also with some amazing conservation success stories that kind of, champion the work of conservation and how we can actually turn the tide, but also teetering on the brink that if something changes or policy is kind of put in place, it could be that quick to kind of pretty much wipe them off the face of the earth and seal their fate as well. So this was a commentary of, it's heading in that direction, but if we work now, hopefully we can turn the tide.
Yeah, and I think that's important to mention this as well. There are people who are working tirelessly to help, wildlife, and there are great conservation stories, success stories. Obviously a lot to do still, but I think it's important to mention, and we can see the role that art can have in telling these stories visually through your beautiful monochrome imagery. So I'm bringing you full screen now to ask you the same last question, Cole. How do you see the role of the artist in driving change for people and planet?
It's so interesting to hear everyone's answer to this, and we all say it differently, but I think essentially we seem to be echoing the same sentiment. And it's just to drive engagement, I think, start the conversations. I don't think my view as an artist is I'm not going to change the world, but I could maybe change one person's opinion, or I could just open one person's eyes to a different topic, a different species that they've never known of, and what the kind of butterfly effect from that is you could hope, and if you're positive about it, you could hope it drives change. But I think our role as artists is to just open up conversation, to open up engagement, and to kind of, we've got the unique, well, not the unique ability, we've got the unique place and kind of the opportunity to use our skills to open up that conversation. And I think it's something that we shouldn't take for granted, and try and put ourselves out there and at least start talking about things that we're passionate about, and hopefully that kind of moves on and transfers into change.
Yeah, beautiful answer. And I think through what you shared with us today, we can really see that you've spent time in the field very extensively, and that you know your topics as well. So thank you so much for joining us, Cole. It was a pleasure to see you again, and hopefully we'll do something together again in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great. Thank you very much.
So we are moving to our last artist, and we'll have a closing poem with him, Anthony E. Lovell. So responding to a 2019 IPBES report in collaboration with the United Nations that identified up to 1 million species were at risk of extinction from human activity, Anthony founded the 1 Million Poetry Project. His passion to give a voice to critically endangered wildlife through the art of poetry was a return to his 10-year-old self and his lifelong love of animals and nature. As he found his loved ones under existential threat on a global scale, he became a proxy voice for the endangered, using emotive poetry to draw attention to a worldwide audience, and his poems are famously known to make people cry while their tears still have potency. So let's welcome you if you are still here, because Anthony is joining us from Australia, and it is very late for him. I hope he has not fallen to sleep.
I think you mean very early. I think you mean very early.
Very early, yeah. Let's say this. So, Anthony, let's share with the people first the 1 Million Poetry Project. If you can explain what it is about, why you started it. We can see some visuals of it here.
Sure. But first, I want to say it's been really great listening to all these luminaries on the panel. It's really been very enlightening, and it's quite an honor to be here. So I'm very, very happy about that, and excellent work putting it all together, Ingrid. So yes, the 1 Million Poetry, which you know a lot about, really came about from that 2019 report that found that up to 1 million species would be at risk of extinction if humans kept going the same way that they were going. Well, I think we're still going pretty much the same direction, unfortunately, a few years later. So it's even more important. And I, really, really especially love the work of the wildlife artists and other people, not only on the panel, but anyone who's doing anything to raise the awareness of what's happening to animals on the planet. So that's where the 1 million poetry came from. Strangely enough, we've mentioned the 19th of April a couple of times, and remember that was when we launched the website for the 1 Million Poetry, another 19th of April, a very good, very auspicious date for some reason.
Yeah, so yes.
Yeah, so that's quite fascinating. But anyway, I just use my medium, which is words, and wordplay to write little stories about animals that people may or may not know about. I started off writing about animals I liked, and then I started specializing then on the endangered ones. And then I thought, well, the list of critically endangered, they're the ones that are in the waiting room for extinction, the ones heading in the wrong direction. And that's what the logo across the top is trying to convey, almost like Cole had in the other, with the animal, with the tiger going the other way into nothingness. We had a procession of animals, including, you know, the Sumatran tiger and cross river gorilla, etc., heading the wrong way towards extinction, with the exception of one animal at the end, which happens to be a northern hairy-nosed wombat, which in the 1980s, the numbers, there were only about 30 of them left in alive. And thankfully, because of a captive breeding program and some sanctuaries that they had to fence, the numbers are up to 400 in 3 different sanctuaries now. So it can be reversed, but only if people really know about it and people really care about it and people get behind those conservation efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there was this graphic also done for the 1 Million Poetry Project, and the message around all being one, independently of what creature you are on the planet, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And yeah, that was the short version of the logo with, and every time, you know, in that long logo, as you know, I wrote a poem called the No-Go logo. And each of those animals had something to say about themselves. And it's the same with this one, with the orangutan and the nautilus and the forest elephant, which is the most endangered elephant in Africa. So yes, there's a story behind everything, and thankfully, because through our collaboration, we've managed to get some nice graphics and some nice colors to go with it, apparently.
Because you are colorblind too. So people can find all these poems on your website, 1millionpoetry.com. So the project we wanted to share with people today is called the New Big Five. So can you explain what it is?
Yes, I had already written poems about elephants and tigers and the mountain gorilla, actually. Sorry, and the cross river gorilla, which is maybe the most endangered gorilla, but there's a couple of contenders actually. And then I came across the New Big Five project by Graham Greene, a really very good wildlife photographer, as there are amongst this crew that we have here tonight. And so I started thinking about putting them together in a way of, because I was inspired by that project. And the New Big Five was the top 5 animals that you would want to photograph instead of going trophy hunting. And there's Graham on the left. And before that, there was a different set of the Big Five, called the Big Five, the most dangerous animals that you could go and kill without being killed yourself. And, you know, a very colonial vestige that still goes on today. So this was a project to counter the the Big Five, and Graham called it the New Big Five. And there was an absolute pile of wildlife photographers, and they took a vote, and these were the top animals. And so when I put together the poems, I put the 5 and I related it to the hand, to the fingers of the hand. Each of those animals was one finger, and it had a story in particular. And that was basically the project. It was just one way of telling the story. And partially because I used that hand analogy in the Cross River Gorilla poem, and talking about the opposable thumb. I made the gorilla the opposable thumb, and unfortunately the polar bear ended up with a little finger and complained about it in the poem. But anyway. There was a good reason for that.
Yeah, I really love the story you've told, because obviously we've known the Big Five as being part of a totally different story. The new Big Five are these 5 animals, as you mentioned, that people have voted for across the world as their favorites. So probably we have some favorites among them. And then because, when you hold a camera or you hold a gun, you obviously use your hands. And the fact that you associated with the poems and each one of these animals with each finger, I think that was really clever. So congrats on this. So we can see 3 extracts of these animals with the polar bear, the lion, and the elephant. There are 2 more with the gorilla. And what is the last one? Tiger.
Yes.
And people can find them on your website. So let me stop sharing, because you're going to end the event today with a poem reading. But before you do so, can I ask you to answer the same question as the other artists? How do you see the role of the artist in driving change for people and planet?
Well, yeah, look, I've been thinking about it, and there's been some very profound types of things. And I've been trying to think, first thing that comes to mind was I've been trying to think about what the world was like before modern humans, when everything was in balance and was quite happy being in balance. And then modern humans came along and just started changing the environment to suit themselves, even though they were a product of a particular environment. And then they weren't satisfied with that, with any one particular environment, so they went to every environment except Antarctica in the long run. And even there's sort of token settlements. And yeah, so it's hard to imagine what it would have been like. So in a lot of ways, we are the problem, where all these animals are facing extinction for one reason, and that's because of modern humans. So we are the problem, but that also means that we've got to be the solution. Probably just means that we're quite a young species in terms of how long species tend to last, so we're probably just in the early stages of growing up, and we really need to grow up a lot faster so that we understand the consequences of our actions. Everyone knows about crossing planetary boundaries and things like that. But what can one person do? I think Cole was the one who mentioned what can one person do? And as I said before, my medium is words and telling stories that affect people emotionally. And the one thing that I can use as an example of why I do it and what could happen is that I was contacted, not the International Ranger Day this year, but the previous year, by a guy who's trying to help out with the mental health of rangers in Africa who are basically at war every day. They don't know whether they're coming home every day. And that's a big mental health challenge, even before the pandemic. There's lots of issues with regard to that. So he asked me to write a poem about that for International Ranger Day that he shared in the programs that he was involved in. So I did that from Australia, never been to Africa. So it's a little bit presumptuous, but he liked it. And I thought, well, that's good. One person's been affected by something that I've written. But then prior to this year's, he sent me his poem. And he asked me to make some comments on it. And I made some very token comments because it was his work, it was his passion, it was his vision, and it worked, and it was great, and that made it worthwhile for me because he was a baby poet, like I was a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago now, I guess, and yeah, just that he was inspired to take it up and do something with it, so I was very happy about that. And I guess that's related to the poem I'm going to read too. If one person can affect one person, and then some others artists. Then a lot of people go out and do the same thing. A lot of artists go out and do the same thing, like all the artists on this panel. We're all doing that sort of all day, every day, trying to get these messages out there. Then, you know, you can see that ripple effect. You can see the numbers building. And I think I mentioned something about that in my poem, The 1 Million. People going out and spreading the word and getting more and more people on board. And sooner or later, there'll be a tipping point that's a good tipping point, where the majority of people actually care about what's happening to wildlife, which is important because in the end, biodiversity is what creates the life support systems of the planet. And because we're messing with that, we're in trouble. Let's just say we're in trouble at the moment.
Yeah.
So I will try not to put this across the camera because I'm using a very low tech leaning against the screen. This morning at 8 a.m. I mean, yesterday morning at 8 a.m. I was at a poetry reading at a local harvest festival based on permaculture principles of permaculture farm, and I was reading with some other bush poets, and I was pretty amazed because they were doing these long poems all from memory, but I don't. I read them, and one thing you'll find out very quickly is I'm not a performance poet, and I have no aspiration to be a performance poet. I'm only doing it because maybe someone will be affected and do it better than me.
Thank you, and thank you so much for doing this for us, Anthony. I know it's not forcefully your favorite thing to do, but I think it's a nice way because I've asked you if you could create a poem for this event that really summarizes what we've been talking about today, the role of the artist in driving change. And you took the challenge on board, which I really appreciate. I also want to say thank you for all the work you do because you dedicate 100% of your time as an artist to the cause of wildlife and critically endangered wildlife. I think that's really worth to be noted to finish this event. So we are going to finish with you. I'm going to disappear and I give you the floor to finish with your poem.
Now, yeah, this poem was inspired by a true story, and that is a bird that wakes me up every morning. I wasn't able to get a recording of what happened, but half an hour after this bird starts singing on its own, this is what I hear in my backyard. Hopefully you can hear it too. We have big birds, magpie geese, and then just in a little while, a flock of whistling ducks flies over. So this poem is called Creation Song. Why do you wake me so early, bird out on a limb? Still dark. Hardly any of dawn's first streaks. Who do you sing for? No one is moving. A solo voice, until gradually others join in. The dawn chorus becomes a din. Do you sing for beauty, sing for glory? Not yet, not so early, too dim. Other inspiration is afoot. Breathe in. Have life, must sing. Like no one is listening. Ah, so there it is, just for self. Just because you cannot not do it. Compulsive creative. As a bird on a limb or on the wing, creation makes the heart sing. Why do we pick up a pen, a brush, a pencil, a stylus perhaps? Start tapping on those keys. Blank paper, blank board, blank screen. Subjective inspiration kicks in. Sketchy maybe at the start. Creativity is about to spark. Creativity is the real thing, Russell. Creation makes the heart sing. Don't catch the fluttering butterfly flitting by. Where they go, you'll never know. Run with it. Let's play follow the leader. Go with it. A word, an image, a fleeting thought. Why do you hear a melody come through? A sound, a song, a title by the creator grasped. spin a coin, makes two sides an animate one, blending into something new, another dimension, a random thought that goes critical. Any kind of knock can open the door. The floodgate unmitigated lets flow. Pour it out for an audience, visual art viewers, but not first thing, only after self-indulging. Creation makes the heart sing. It's not just smelling the beauty of the roses, seeing clearly the first scent of the dawn, hearing the first light paint the landscape, savouring the early morning birdsong, touching the melodies, oncoming sound waves. We don't live in an artist retreat, sanctified. We can't unsee the good, the bad, and the ugly, can't escape the injustice and the cruelty. Step into the outside world and be mired. The daily struggles, the lifestyle not admired, the noise, the dust in the wind swirling, smoke not limited to the water encircling, the world turning, so many places burning, smotherer of that creative spark sputtering. Would go out, but change the fuel, igniting. Passions inflamed, justice infamed, infuriating. Take a deep breath, hold it in, control it. Channel it into a potent pilot flame. Flame on as necessary. Provide heat, shed light. Tell stories, illuminating. Move those bodies rhythmically or not. Inspiration has its agent provocateur. Whatever can be sensed by the five. Can wake sensibilities, pique interest, recruit to a cause, provoke a response, form an opinion, forge a resolve, start those conversations made visual, sense those stories made visceral, call to justice and equity and sustainability, make a festival out of it, artistic impressions, impassioned creators creating for mind shifting, urge the world to unite for a civil society, join the festivities, make art not a list of unmentionable things, except to drown them out, diluting with a flood of narrative shape-shifting. Play with fire off those synapses, a narrative to affect a narrative effect. Change that storyline and trajectory. Continuity of life on Earth, a necessity. Humankind should not the least be kind, not to just itself, ourselves, but to nature, original creator, inspirer of creativity, original sustainer, irreplaceable for that continuity. Art for Earth's sake means that for the sake of all. Draw it, paint it, sculpt it, turn it into melody. Update, imagine, to a new song anticipating generational singers to say all kinds of things. Some love-struck, soothing, or get up, energizing. Some with a sting for the things that need ending. Run the gamut of emotions, the creator's gambit. Send it out on sound waves, capture light on film, capture the building blocks of the scene, manipulate pixels. Essential for the sensual representation, any medium. Get those early birds singing again. Keep them coming back. Join in the early morning chorus. Familiar ring. Who needs an alarm? Not the least bit alarming. Creative collective. Meaning movement spreading. Creation for creator's own sake. Creation lets the heart be heard and seen. Creation makes the heart sing. Then they share it all about. And so they sing each morning, calling us to start the day right, even those owls of the night, whatever the charming hour, inviting us to join in creating for the sake of creation. I don't need you to tell me how you get your inspiration. A little bird told me every day at dawn.
Amazing, Anthony. What an inspiration with this poem. Thank you so much. I'm sending some hearts now. Beautiful poem to finish this webinar event. We will have it on Scarlet Red Mag, and we will send the link to all the attendees so that they can appreciate it after this event as well. I'm going to bring everybody who wants to come back again. And thank you so much to all the artists who took part to the event today. A great creative collective, as per your poem. And they have shown us today the power of the arts to bring attention to important issues and how we can change the narratives, certainly with artistic inspiration. And this is why this event existed today, to really show the role of the artist and how important they are in global discussions.